All right, let's set the scene. Think back. Way back to the mid 1980s, pop music, it was just this dazzling explosion, wasn't
Oh,
it?
yeah. Big hair, shoulder pads, synths everywhere.
Totally. And MTV just churning out superstars. But amidst all that, there was this other sound emerging. Cooler, smoother.
Sophisti-pop.
Exactly, sophisti-pop, that really elegant mix of pop, jazz, and soul.
Hmm.
And right there, leading the pack, was this UK trio, Swing Out Sister. Great name, by the way.
Borrowed from an old B-movie, I think, 1940s.
That's the one. And their big hit, 1986, Breakout.
Yeah.
It defined that moment. You couldn't escape it.
Huge song. Absolutely massive.
But here's the thing, and this is really what we want to dig into today. Unlike so many bands from that time, Swing Out Sister, well, they didn't just become an 80s nostalgia act.
No, they kept going.
Kept going, stayed relevant, thrived for, 40 years now. So the big question for this deep dive is, how? How did they pull that off?
Yeah, and I think the core of it really is how they deliberately chose artistic growth over just chasing the next hit. It sounds simple maybe, but it's rare. Right. From the get-go, they seem to understand that lasting power wasn't about repeating breakout. It was about the journey, the creative evolution.
So that's our mission for this deep dive then.
Exactly. Let's explore that unique path they took, how they managed to avoid that typical 80s burnout, how they made lasting music by kind of stepping away from the mainstream spotlight when they needed to.
To see how they stayed cool, basically.
Yeah, how they defied those trends for decades. It's a fascinating story.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. Their origins. Manchester, right? 1985.
That's right. Andy Connell, he'd been in a certain ratio.
And Martin Jackson from a magazine.
Yeah, they were initially crafting these quite sophisticated electronic tracks.
Hmm?
But the real magic happened when Corinne Drew rejoined.
Her voice, that soulful quality. People compared her to Dusty Springfield.
Definitely. It just lifted everything, gave it that unique character.
Yeah. And that all came together on the first album, It's Better to Travel, 1987.
And boom, straight to #1 in the UK.
Yeah.
Just an immediate impact.
What was it about that sound? You had the funky bass, the horns?
Yeah, funky bass lines, those bright horns, and crucially, those almost cinematic strings. Very lush.
That blend, it was pretty distinctive.
Absolutely. It set them apart right away.
Thinking about that blend, the funk, the horns, the strings,
Mm.
where does it really pop for you? Like, take a track like Twilight World. How did they make that sound so modern but also classic, almost like Bacharach?
Oh, Twilight World is a perfect example. It wasn't just like copying Bacharach. They were weaving something new.
Right.
You've got that contemporary synth gloss, sure, but then these huge sweeping orchestral bits and a melody that feels timeless, like sophisticated lounge music, but updated.
So it felt fresh but not disposable.
Exactly. It wasn't just chasing the sound of 87. It had this built-in longevity.
Which really put them on the map, sophisti-pop royalty, basically. Up there with Sod, that kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
But that success, hitting #1 straight off, that must have created its own pressure. Where do you go next? How do you follow Breakout?
That's always the challenge, isn't it? The sophomore album pressure. It's easy to look back now and say, oh, they just evolved. But imagine being them right then.
Yeah, the temptation must have been huge to just try and write another Breakout.
For sure.
Yeah.
The industry probably wanted exactly that. Give us Breakout Part 2.
But they didn't. You mentioned they pivoted. Was that a struggle, or were they already looking beyond that first hit?
It seems like a very conscious decision, actually.
Yeah.
Corinne and Andy, even as It's Better to Travel was huge, they were thinking ahead.
Huh.
And then Martin Jackson left.
Right before the second album.
Yeah. And that next album, Kaleidoscope World in '89, it was a definite shift. They leaned hard into that orchestral sound.
Bringing in Jimmy Webb for arrangements, that's legendary.
Exactly. Jimmy Webb.
Mhm.
That signals serious artistic intent, doesn't it? It says, we're not just chasing pop hits, we're building something richer, more lasting.
It's a statement, and you can hear it. Songs like You on My Mind or The Kaleidoscope Affair, they really do sound like film scores almost. How did they achieve that musically?
Well, they expanded on what they already had. Bigger string sections, more complex arrangements. The song structures weren't always typical either.
Less verse, chorus, verse?
Sometimes, yeah. More like mini suites. Using instrumental passages to build a mood, an atmosphere. It wasn't just about the hook. It was about creating this whole sonic world.
Like scoring a scene.
Precisely. Guiding the listener's emotions through the music itself.
And that gamble, moving away from pure pop, how did that land?
Critically, it was very well received. It showed depth.
Mm-hmm.
And crucially, it really connected with audiences in Japan. They developed this incredibly loyal fan base there that appreciated that artistry.
So trading chart positions for maybe critical respect and a dedicated following?
I think so. It proved they weren't just a flash in the pan. They had ambition beyond just that first big peak. They were building a world, like you said.
Okay, so that takes us into the 90s. The musical landscape is shifting again, grunge, Britpop later on. How do they navigate that? How do they stay vibrant?
Well, they shifted again, 1992. Get in touch with yourself. That album definitely leaned much more into soul and funk.
Okay.
You start hearing clearer influences, maybe Curtis Mayfield, Stevie Wonder, that kind of feel.
So not abandoning the sophistication, but adding more groove.
Exactly. It wasn't like they suddenly became a funk band, but those elements were much more prominent. It showed their versatility, broadened their sound again, just as music was changing around them.
And it worked commercially too, didn't it? Their cover
Yeah, the Barbara Acklin song.
hit #1 on the U.S. Adult Contemporary chart, which is interesting. Shows they had great taste in covers too, not just writing.
Absolutely. A real skill in curation, finding a gem like that and making it their own.
And they kept that blend going through the 90s. Albums like The Living Return, Shapes and Patterns.
And they continued refining that mix. The Living Return in 94, Shapes and Patterns in 97. That one actually won a big award in Japan, the Grand Prix, for the song Now You're Not Here.
Wow.
What's really impressive is how consistently they could weave the jazz elements, the orchestral touches, the soul. It never sounded forced. It kept the sound fresh, adaptable. They weren't stuck.
Which seems key. As we head towards the 2000s, a lot of their 80s contemporaries were, well, fading or just playing the hit circuit.
Right, whereas Swing Out Sister, they chose to innovate again.
So what did that look like in the new millennium? How did they stay relevant then?
Well, they got more experimental. Take Filth and Dreams in 1999. That was actually a Japan-only release initially.
Okay, what was different about it?
It went into some unexpected territory. There were elements of trip-hop, even drum and bass on tracks like Who's Been Sleeping. Pretty bold.
Really? Trip-hop and drum and bass? That's quite a leap from Breakout.
It shows they weren't afraid to push themselves to absorb what was happening musically without just jumping on bandwagons.
And later albums, Where Our Love Grows, Beautiful Mess.
Those continue to explore.
Yeah.
You hear more like Brazilian rhythms creeping in alongside the jazz and soul. And notably, those albums did really well on the U.S. jazz charts. Top 5.
So they found a new audience, or maybe their existing audience followed them into that jazzier space.
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
It solidified their reputation as serious musicians, not just pop stars. It all comes back to that commitment to growth, right? Not just chasing trends, but genuine artistic curiosity. Exploring new sounds because they wanted to.
Which brings us more or less up to date. How have they managed to keep it going, maintain that longevity, and importantly, that artistic control, especially now, outside the old major label system?
Well, they were quite savvy in embracing new models. Crowdfunding, for instance.
Right, like Pledge Music for Almost Persuaded in 2017.
Exactly. That allowed them to bypass the traditional industry gatekeepers completely. Fund the album directly through their fans. That album, by the way, had lovely neo-soul, Motown vibes, still evolving.
So crowdfunding is one piece. What else have they done to keep that control, manage their own legacy? They seem very hands-on with their catalog.
Oh, absolutely. They release things like comprehensive box sets themselves. There's one planned for 2025, a mid-career set. And they're working on a new big band album, too.
A big band album.
Yeah. Again, it's driven by their artistic interests, not what a label thinks will sell. That direct connection they've built with their fans over the years is crucial.
It really allows them that freedom, doesn't it?
Complete freedom. It's sustained this incredible 40-year run. They really are, masters of their own musical universe, defining success on their own terms.
So when we wrap this all up, looking at the whole picture, Swing Out Sisters, Coolest, their success, what's the headline?
I think it really loops back to the title of that first album. It's Better to Travel. That wasn't just a title. It feels like their core philosophy.
The journey over the arrival.
Precisely. While others were scrambling for that one big hit, that peak moment, they committed to the long game, to constant evolution, constant exploration. The process itself was the reward.
And throughout that journey, that incredible blend of pop, jazz, film scores, they created something genuinely unique and, well, lasting. You hear one of their tracks, you know it's them.
Instantly recognizable.
Yep.
And I think that 40-year freshness ultimately comes down to that blend of curiosity, always looking for new sounds, new ideas, and integrity, sticking to their artistic vision.
They invite you into their world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a world that keeps expanding, keeps surprising. It's quite remarkable.
It really is. You know, if you find this kind of deep dive fascinating, you should definitely check out Mind Expansion Daily. They've got so much incredible content, really helps you get up to speed on topics quickly and thoroughly. Just great information over there.
Good shout.
And speaking of expanding your mind, we really want to hear from you, the listener. What stood out most for you about Swing Out Sisters' journey? Do you see their longevity the way we've discussed it? Maybe you disagree.
Yeah, we'd love to know your take.
Absolutely. Please leave a comment below and let us know what you think. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, please do take a second to like this and subscribe to Mind Expansion Daily. It genuinely helps us keep bringing you more of these conversations, more music history, more explorations like this one.
It really does.
Yeah,
Thanks for tuning in.